I have a ITT 636A key strip. This is what is found inside of a 564, 565, 2564, and 2565 type telephone sets. This is an exact copy of a Western Electric 636A. I do have one I will show in a moment that has the mounting cable connected to it. This is a key strip that was a new key strip that has not yet been used. The key strip that is in front of us at this point has a common lamp ground, which is shown here by this bus that is tying the lamp grounds all together. This is what makes the telephone a X64. An X65, such as a 565, each lamp, which is line 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, has their own individual lamp ground that returns back to the key system. On the 564, you only have one single conductor, which is generally connected here, which would be the white-green lead. That is the lamp ground for all 5 lamps. One problem with having a single ground for all 5 lamps is if you have multiple telephones or long cable runs, you can have line 1 in the off-hook steady condition, a line on hold or ringing, and a different line on hold and ringing, and then yet a different line that is on an in-progress telephone call. Under that scenario, all of the lights that are in off normal condition, i.e. on hold, ringing, or an in-progress phone call, they will all be blinking at 120 interruptions per minute if a line is on hold, which the steady light will be on, but you'll be able to see the pulsing where the light is bright, dim, bright, dim, bright, dim. This was, in my opinion, a very poor design, because if you had a large system with a lot of phones on it, and I've installed big systems that had a lot of 564 and 2564 type sets, it really looked weird. It looked like it was not working properly. There was a way of getting around that if you needed to. If the phone had the yellow-green pair, which is typically what the buzzer is connected to in a Western Electric telephone, the yellow or the yellow-green could be grounded back at the 66 block, and then you would have 2 leads to that lamp key strip. Under this scenario, ITT intended for only one of them to be used. And the same with the Western Electric 564 or 2564. This is the bottom side of the 636A key. At this point, there are no line keys selected. So I will press line 1 down, and we now have 3 leads that are made contact. This lead, and this lead. At this point, they are connecting the tip, the ring, and the A lead to the phone. So in a multi-button phone, this mechanism is what is actually switching the voice call. So each physical line is wired from the key system, 400 type KTU or 1A1 KTU, is wired to each line, which would be these screw terminals here. So line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, and line 5. So typically, if you only have 3 lines, shall we say, working, you'd have line 1, 2, and 3 wired to different 400 kTUs. So when you select a line, there's line 2, line 3, you're switching the phone line from the KTU to the telephone set. So when you put a call on hold, you operate the hold key, and that will release the line key. While you're releasing the line key, you are actually opening up the ground, which is going from ground to the switch hook, from the switch hook in the phone to the key strip, and then from there it's being connected to the A lead going back to the KTU. So if with line 1 selected, the light would be lit, you would have dial tone or an in-progress phone call. So operating the hold key here, and I will try to show this, opens up the lead, which will then put the phone on hold or the line on hold, and then when I release it, there's a pin inside that will release the key strip. Actually, it's a sliding switch, so the pin operates the slider to release the button. You could also, too, if you wanted to, was manually open up the A lead. I'm not sure which contact is the A lead. I believe it's this contact, but I could be mistaken. I would have to chase it through, and for this video I'm not going to do that. So once again, when I press it on hold, it slides a bar inside and then releases the line key. The same thing for any of the 5 lines. So if I went to line 5 and hit the hold button, it would release line 5. Here is a Western Electric 636A key strip. I will show you the ITT right on top of it. They are exactly the same. They are pin-to-pin compatible. You can use the schematic from either ITT or Western Electric to tie the mounting cable down to. The touch tone pads are set specific, so you cannot wire an ITT touch tone pad off of a Western document under most scenarios. There's a couple of touch tone pads they made that you could. So as these key strips age, especially the Western Electric key strips, there is a foam here that is below, above, and in between the contacts. So when you press a contact together, the 3 switch leads, wafers, are connected. When you release the key strip, they of course separate, but there is a foam that's inside of that. ITT has this as well. The foam is deteriorating due to the chemicals and the age. I've seen these foam strips just turn into powder or a paste type substance. Depending on how far gone that is, you may end up with a key strip that's not functional. One of the things I've found as I've refurbished many hundred of these telephones and installed thousands of them is I've seen people mess with these springs as well as age issues and atmosphere issues where some of them are corroded. I've seen them where they were permanently connected, and doing that, if I was to hook up a phone line on, shall we say, line 1, and let's say that there was never a line connected to line 4, and that contact was shorted together, and I added a 4th line, you're now connecting one side of line 4 to the same side of line 1. And if it's the tip side of the line, it'll make it noisy and you'll have crosstalk. If it's the ring side of the line, when you go off hook on line 1 or on line 4, you'll get 2 dial tones at the same exact time. I've seen that in quite a few key strips. The same thing is I've seen the A leads connected permanently so that when you picked up the handset the light would light even though you may not have a line selected, or if you selected a line and the other contact here or here, wherever was connected, the light would light 2 times, both line, shall we say 2 and 4 for an example. At that point you need to come in and separate the contacts. Since this is out of a Western Electric phone, this was the 2565, so here's the lamp lead 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's no common strip between them. In this particular set, the yellow-green has not been connected, but I would put the yellow, or the yellow-green and the green-yellow. That's the hold lamp. The hold lamp was only used for message waiting or to be an indicator of something happening somewhere else. You could put a toggle switch in the side of the phone to turn the bell on or off, and if it was a double pole switch, you could light the hold light to give you an indicator that the phone was either set to ring or not to ring. That was one of the things I'd done with the thing. Also too, if you had multiple phones on in a room on like 4 desks in a quad, you could put a lamp in here, hook your buzzer up to it, and when somebody called you in the intercom, the phone would buzz and that light would light momentarily during the time that the buzzer was buzzing. So if you could see your phone quick enough, you could determine which phone out of the cluster of phones was actually being called. I've done that under a couple of rare scenarios, so that's another thing that you could use the hold lamp. This is a key strip that is connected to an ITT 2830 type telephone. Again, this is identical to a Western Electric 2830 or an 830 if it was a rotary version phone. The key strips are interchangeable in most circumstances. The later phones made by ITT and some Western Electric had what was called automatic button restoration. So when you hung up, it released the line key. If it did have automatic button restoration, the strip here, the release strip, if it's out, shall we say, none of the buttons can be selected. If it's pushed in, which is the spring arrangement is actually on the hook switch itself, and it's connected right here by a spring inside. That's how they released it when you hung up, is you pulled this out and it released the button. If the phone did not have automatic button restoration, then this has a spring here internal inside of the key strip. If you ever take a key strip apart and you lose that spring, you just throw the thing in the garbage can because you'll never find another spring. So again, this works the same exact electrical and mechanical concept as the 636A. So we have here our contacts to take the phone line that's coming from the KTU through the cable into this connector here. And then when you press a button, you're selecting which telephone line out of the 9 that could be wired to this phone and switching it to the phone. This telephone, as well as a 564, 565, 2564, and so forth, the telephone set itself is the same exact phone as a single line 2500 phone, with the exception of the touch tone pad. If it had a 35 AF3A or 35 3YA, I believe, that could be a speakerphone type touchtone pad. If it was easiest way, if it's a 2564, it'll have a residential touchtone pad in the phone. If it's a 2565, it'll have a speakerphone compatible touchtone pad in the phone. ITT had solid state touchtone pads that you needed to have the schematic for that specific pad because they wired differently, and they somewhat wired differently from the Western Electric phones as well. And this is a speakerphone compatible touchtone pad. So again, when you operate the hold key, I will open the contact up, which will put the line on hold at the line card, and then it'll operate the release here and the button pops up, and then you can select the new line and make a call, answer a call, and so forth. And if you hang up, it'll release the button, or if you just select from one line to another line. And again, the hold is for all 9 buttons on the phone. They call this a 10-button phone because you have 10 buttons, but only 9 lines. If you look at the contacts here closely of the key strip, actually the hold key on the key strip, it's a set of transfer. You have a normally closed contact, and then when you open it, you have a transfer. That was done for 1A key telephones, and I will discuss a 1A system sometime in the future. So there is an option that you can use this on a 1A key system. I've never in my lifetime ever seen one done that way, but I have a 1A key system, and I will create using a modern phone on it just for demonstrations. One issue with the ITT 830, 2830, 831 sets is they did the same thing with the lamps. They had one single wire for all 9 lamps. And if you had a system that had a dozen or more phones on it, it really, truly was a disgusting thing to watch the line lamps in an office that had a lot of phone traffic, because they were all blinking. Granted, the ones that were supposed to be non-blinking on hold, you could tell, but you could still see all the lamps that were off hook were blinking at whatever the rate was. So if a line was on hold, they'd all flash fast. If it was on incoming call, they would flash slower. If there was no lines on hold or ringing, but 3 or 4 lines on in-progress phone calls, then each time a phone went on or off hook, you could see the lamps slightly dim. There was no fix for this. With Western Electric, they had a lamp ground for every single lamp in the key phone. The hold key has, in some cases, a pair of wires for the message waiting lamp or the status indicator lamp if you chose to use it for that. And the ITT key strips and Westerns are mechanically and electrically interchangeable. The only thing is some of them have button restoration, some of them don't. That would be the one main issue. Here's a Western Electric key strip. This is used in a 2831 key telephone, which is a 20-button set, either a rotary dial or touchtone, doesn't matter. And it has extra contacts so that when you have none of these line keys selected, then the contacts are closed to the next key strip, which is identical to this, with the exception it does not have the hold key, of course. That would be line number 10. So they've got a chaining thing. So if you press a line down, you open up these contacts and you cut off the common tip ring and A lead to the second key strip. So you can't push this button and one of the other buttons together and conference a line together. That can be defeated with a little bit of wiring changes in the phone. And this, of course, is identical to the ITT, but there's nothing plugged into it here. So this way you can see a good up-close picture of it. And then again, the contacts for the hold, that's a set of transfer contacts. I have here a Western Electric 565 telephone set. So what I've done is I've connected a ground, which is the same as wiring to the orange-white lead at the 66 block, which is inside the 25 pair mounting cable. The orange-white connects down here to the 1B terminal, and then that goes through the hook switch, which is where you hang up with the handset, and then from there it connects to a common lead down here. That is where every A lead screw is wired to a common set of screws here, because you can modify the A lead leads if needed to. So in this scenario, with the handset hung up, when I press a line key, this lamp is not lit. When I remove my finger off of the plunger arrangement, the switch hook arrangement, we will have ground going from here through the contacts, which is right here, over to here, a common terminal strip, and from there each of the A leads underneath, down in the bottom, will connect up to through the switch contacts, the respective A leads going to the key system. So right now I have the light lit, so we have ground going through the phone, going through the key to the wire that would go to the 400 type KTU, possibly a 400D in Western Electric and a 400E in ITT. But any of the 400s, they all work the same in that particular aspect. So when I operate the hold key, you'll notice the lamp will go out. So I've opened the lead, and now the line would be on hold if this was actually connected to a key system. And I can display that here in a moment on my test bench cable. So if since I don't have the other leads connected, I'll have to manually move it. So here's line 2, and I'll connect it to the A lead for line 2. Same exact scenario, and then I will connect for line 3. Here, if I can get to line 3, right there. And of course the same thing, and then line number 4, and then of course line number 5 here. And the same function, when you hit the hold key, you are opening the common ground that's being switched through to the line card. And again, the phone itself, the ringer, the network, switch hook, rotary dial in this case, is the same components that's in a 500 set, except this rotary dial has contacts for muting the speakerphone. Otherwise, I could put a standard residential type rotary dial in this phone. It'd work perfectly fine. It'd become a 564 because it would not be speakerphone compatible. I had the phone plugged into my key system, and on my test cable, line 1, 2, 3, and 4 are connected together to the same line card. This is how I test for lamps, A leads, and hold function. Line number 5 is connected to my home line, and I've done that because I have a step-by-step office on lines 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I have an asterisk line on line number 5, which has different dial tone and provides slightly different characteristics for me. So I will press a line key, in this case number 1. All 4 lines have lit up. When I press the hold key, it put the line on hold because I opened up the A lead to the KTU. If I press line 2, it's solid, 3 is solid, 4 is solid, and then line 5 is a dedicated line, and again I can put that on hold as well. This is what the front of a number 9 late model dial looks like. I have removed the dial ring, the face on here, because I can put any color I want on it. And the rear of the dial has, of course, 6 leads. You have the 2 leads here, which are the blue leads. That's the pulsing lead that opens and closes the phone line in the case of the rotary phone. The yellow leads is a mute, speakerphone mute. So when the dial goes off normal and you can't see it, you short these 2 leads together to mute the speakerphone so you don't have a very loud pop on the speakerphone as you're dialing. And then the white leads is a second mute switch. Actually, the yellow leads are the second mute switch, and the white leads is the primary that is shorting out the receiver during a dial when you're dialing a digit, so you don't have a loud pop inside of the receiver itself. This dial, the only thing you need this for is the yellow leads to mute the speakerphone. If I had a regular 500 set dial, I could put it in here and it'd work perfectly fine. I'll point out that in Western Electric telephone sets, the 10 volt AC or 18 volt AC buzzer is connected to the yellow-green and the green-yellow lead. ITT and Stromberg phones generally had the buzzers connected to the yellow-orange lead. Why Western did the yellow-green, I kind of question that when everybody else was intending for the buzzers to be connected to the yellow-orange lead. It does not matter unless you're plugging in, swapping out a phone. If you had a failed Western Electric phone and you replaced it with an ITT phone, you'd have to put the buzzer on the yellow-green pair, or at the other end of the cable, move the buzzer jumper from the yellow-green to the yellow-orange. If you had what's called CPC bridging connectors, which is a complete different beast, you have to be careful when you're mixing telephones using CPCs, otherwise you'll have conferencing issues that you're not expecting. And you wanted to have two phones with two different intercom extensions on one cable. You could hook the yellow-green pair for one buzzer, the yellow-orange for a different buzzer, and then each phone would have its own intercom code, so you could call that station without buzzing the other phone. There's a multitude of ways of connecting up the intercom buzzers, but for simplistic sake, I'll just tell you that it's the yellow-green in Western Electric sets and the yellow-orange on the rest of the sets. This is the bottom of a 565 HK. Someone had modified this to be a 2565 by adding the digit 2 ahead of the 565, and then it was converted to a touch-tone telephone. I'm going to put this back as a rotary dial phone, and I will take that 2 off of there. I'll use denatured alcohol, and that'll wipe it right off, and it'll be a 565. The HK, if you looked in the BSPs, there is significance to the HK. It tells you the kind of key strip and how the phone's wired. If this had an M at the end of it, that meant it was a modular phone, or the handset part was modular. So you could find a 565 HK, which would be a hardwired, or a 565 HKM, which would be a modular phone. And of course, we got the ringer volume adjustment as well. The Amphenol on Western Electric phones, if this is a full 25 per Amphenol, if this was a true 564 or 2564 earlier generation phone, there would be the last 5 contacts in the Amphenol would be missing. And that was one quick way you could tell by looking at the connector, or the plug in this case, if it was a 2565 or 2564. I can tell, of course, by looking at the bottom of it because of what's stamped on it, sometimes the size of the cable, but I did find the early phones was missing the last 5 pairs, which are the violet, like the violet blue, violet orange, violet green, and violet brown, violet slate. If this was a 565, and it is, or an ITT 565, those are used for speakerphones, the number 3 speakerphone or the number 4 speakerphone. The way that works is the violet green, violet brown, and violet slate of the mounting cable is connected to different terminals in the phone. So when you select the line key, if the handset is on hook, hung up, and you turn the speakerphone on, which is an external on or off, you would then draw a dial tone off of the network and through the dial that would be switched through to the speakerphone. So one quick cute little thing you can do, and this has been done before, is if you wanted to hook up a single line telephone that was being controlled by this phone, you could hook up the tip and the ring of the single line phone to the violet green of this phone, and whatever line selection was pressed down would switch that line to that phone. Now the single line phone would have to be modified for A and A1 control, which then comes back here onto the violet slate leads. And then the muting lead is the violet brown lead. So you're basically on a speakerphone arrangement, you're actually taking the speakerphone and switching it through the phone to whatever line you want. And of course, it doesn't matter if it's a speakerphone or a single line phone or a cordless phone. That is one of the things you can do. If you was to take a 565, two of them, or two 2565 sets, or intermix them, what happens is when you select a line key on one telephone, you're switching that line through the cable to the connector, through the cable back to the other phone, and you're paralleling the telephones together at that point. So the phone that is connected with this phone does not have to have any line keys selected to make a phone call, because it's going through this phone. If this phone was on line 3 and the other phone was on line 2 and they both were hung up, it'd look okay. The moment you went off hook on either one of the two telephones, you're going to get two lines because you've conferenced the phones together through the speakerphone leads and the CPC connector. So that way you would have two phone calls, two different parties on the same thing, and they're wondering why this is happening and what's going on. Well, one of the things is that's a moving target to try to find, because if they turn in a case of trouble, the customer doesn't know what they're telling you. They're saying, hey, when I go off hook, I hear somebody else on the phone. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, so you have to find out which two phones were CPC'd together. Well, that can be easy if the line selection buttons was pressed down on both phones and left that way. When you come out to do your troubleshooting, then it would be quick and easy to find. But if somebody else uses the phone and releases the line by putting it on hold or just manually releasing it, you've just removed the conference, so you no longer have a problem. But the problem will come back when one of the buttons is again pushed on the phone, which could be a different line. So it could be line 1 and line 4 at one time, and line 2 and line 1 a different time, and so forth. So it's recommended to never connect two phones that's a 565 together, or two 2565s, or 565 and a 2565, unless you disconnect the violet slate leads inside of the telephone. That includes all 5 leads or 6 leads depending on the phone. If you don't, you're going to have problems, and unless you're very experienced at working on 182 stuff, you'll never figure out what the problem is.